great concept. It just blows me away every time I think about it. Taking dinosaur DNA, and creating these dinosaurs, creating a park and having everything go wrong. I mean, there's just so many elements to a great thriller, right in there. But Michael Crichton builds up the believability so that by the time we see, the dinosaurs, we're like, well, of course there's dinosaurs today. It's like, we're like, yeah, obviously there are dinosaurs. And so, I mean, a couple of the things you can do to build up believability is one, a simple way is having an expert argue against the thing that you're trying to make believable. Now, this just sounds a little bit backwards. I mean, you'd think, well, shouldn't you have an expert argue for it? No, actually, if you have an expert argue against it, like let's say that your book is about how these telepathic people can cause someone to have a stroke, like from a distance, halfway around the world, these telepaths can do this thing. And so that seems kind of unbelievable at first. So if you had a character say, no, that's impossible. Another one says, are you sure? Absolutely. I've studied, human brain function for the last 40 years. It's absolutely impossible for anyone to affect, and he goes on. And the more he goes on, the more readers are going, oh, no, it's not. It's totally possible. And so it's a simple, it's a simple technique. Having an expert argue against it makes it more believable.
You're letting that expert be the devil's advocate, which also might be the voice of some readers at first if you hadn't put that in. But since you've got a guy answering the questions, and hey.
Because in stories, readers instinctively know that things are not what they appear to be. And I believe that when we come to stories, whether it's a thriller, mystery, suspense, contemporary fiction, whatever it is, we want to believe in that world of the stories. Some people talk about the suspension of disbelief, and I totally get where they're coming from. I sort of think of it in the opposite terms. Instead of you're suspending disbelief, you're actually entering it with a lot of belief, and you want that to remain. So I think part of our job as novelists is not just to create, compelling stories, but stories where readers, when they start reading it, they want to believe it, and we don't get in the way of that. So it's almost like we're stepping out of the way of their disbelief,
right,
and we're allowing them to continue on this journey that they want to take, or else they wouldn't have started reading a story.
Well, yeah, don't you think that? I mean, it helps to suspend the disbelief if people want to go there. You mentioned Jurassic Park. Let me tell you, if there were a Jurassic Park, I would be there. I don't care if they're not going to get out every single movie. I would be there. It's a very desirable fantasy.
Yeah, it's just a great, high concept. And I just love how it's built up, step by step, scientific fact by scientific fact. And I've done that with a couple of my books where you point out one scientific thing and then another and another and another. And then in my book, I just bring them all together so that it's not that there actually is this device that, can conquer the world or whatever, but all the science is behind it. And all I've done is just weave together the little aspects of it in a way that readers hadn't thought of before.
Mm-hmm. Well, in your most recent book, Synapse, that's futuristic, right? It's got some science fictional elements. Does that make the believability harder?
Yeah, that was interesting. For several years, I had this idea that I wanted to write kind of a science fiction thriller that takes place about 30 years in the future. And so this one takes place after what some people would call the singularity. So in this book, machines have free will, consciousness, and self-awareness. They just already have that. So my question when I wrote it was, if a machine or a robot, whatever, has free will, what will he choose to believe? And how will those beliefs affect how he interacts with reality? And so instead of artificial intelligence, which has been, explored in countless different movies and TV shows and novels and so on, the question here was artificial belief. And so I'd never seen anyone delve into artificial belief before. And so, just to set up the believability of the story, just at the beginning, I just say 30 years from now, and then we start immediately in with the story. And I think readers are like, okay, oh, there's robots, and they can think for themselves. All right, I can buy it, So yeah, it was a ton of fun to write. So like you mentioned, it's different. Most of my other books have all been contemporary, suspense thrillers and psychological novels and so on. And this one, Launching into the Future, had some problems, not problems in the story, but like some problems as far as societal issues and so on, where I'm like, where is this going to be in 30 years? It's hard to guess. Mm-hmm. But you do your best, and then you let the story take you from there.
That's how it usually goes. Stephen, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the chance.
Wasn't that terrific? Thank you again, Stephen, for that fantastic interview. I want to get you back on this podcast again sometime soon. In closing, because so many of you have reached out in the past couple weeks to tell me that you enjoy the podcast and want to support it, let me suggest 2 ways that you can do exactly that. 1, I do have a Patreon page, which I use to mentor writers. And if you would like to check that out, there's a special podcast supporter level. Won't cost you very much, but I very much appreciate the support. That's at patreon.com. Patreon is Patreon. Then search for William Bernhardt and you'll find it. And the other, even simpler way to support the podcast is just leave a review wherever it is that you're getting podcasts, Apple, Google Play, whatever it is. Just leave a, I hope, nice review, because that not only makes me feel better, it increases the searchability. It makes it easier for people to find the podcast, okay? Until next time, keep writing. And remember, you cannot fail if you refuse to quit.